What is the value proposition for belief? What is the value proposition for atheism? In this video, we're not going to discuss the afterlife, because the description of heaven alone, by the way, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, what no heart has imagined, is enough to tip the scales overwhelmingly towards belief. For some, God's promises in the afterlife are more real than their current life, but for most others, the afterlife is too hard to imagine and too far away to work for. So again, for the purposes of this video, we'll discuss the value propositions for belief versus atheism in this life only. What does belief give us? And what can atheism take away? Belief gives us a central role in the universe. A believer believes that he is God's vice regent, he's God's deputy on earth, with a central role in the universe. The atheist believes we are chemical, biological scum or survival machines, robot vehicles. Religion answers the most important questions of our lives, which science cannot answer, which is why are we here? What is the purpose of our lives? If there's no purpose to life, what is the difference between Hitler and Martin Luther King? Why does a human life have any more significance than that of a scarecrow? If you work for a company and you work in total oblivion of the mission statement of the company, how productive a worker can you be? Similarly, in this life, if we work in oblivion of our Creator and our mission statement, we might be going totally in the wrong direction. Belief also offers you in this life a manual for an optimal existence. It provides a guide, a map from our designer on how to live life optimally. With this guide, our path is clear. If I buy a phone and I read the manual, I'll probably know all the features and become a very proficient user within a few hours. If I ignore the manual and try to understand the functions by trial and error, I may discover 80% of the functions over a much longer period. We do ourselves a grave disservice if we ignore this manual. We squander this precious resource and instead choose to wander aimlessly through this life. You go to a new location. You ask a resident for directions. We have two choices. Either we follow the directions or try to find our own way. If we choose to follow the directions, we won't be lost. We won't waste time. If we choose to just wander around finding our own way, we're opening ourselves to hardship and the possibility of failure. So the most logical and efficient way to get to an unknown destination is to take directions from a trustworthy source. Furthermore, if I take the local resident's direction, he might help me further by walking with me part of the way, or even taking me there. But if I say, no, I'll find my own way, he'll probably leave me to face the consequences of my obstinacy, and I might get lost. And similarly, if we accept God's guidance, He will provide us with more help and direction. But if we turn our back on it, He'll leave us to flounder in ignorance. And our journey so far, man's journey to find the right path through trial and error, has not really led to much happiness or stability in this world. We see rising crime, corruption, widespread nationalism, racism, school shootings, family unit disintegration, you name it. With religion, we also have a refuge in God, a 24/7 refuge. By the way, one of the meanings of the word religion in Latin is a bond. Bond with God is a connection with the one who controls the outcome of anything we're worried about, who never tires of hearing us, and who never lets us down. And more importantly, He's always available wherever we are and whenever we need Him. Belief also gives us acceptance and contentment in life. To an atheist, this worldly life is it, nothing more. He cannot understand why he or his loved ones are subjected to suffering or evil or issues or problems. He's angry at the injustice in this life. This leads to feelings of dissatisfaction, desperation, and loss of hope. To a believer, this worldly life is not it, because death is not the end of our story. It is the beginning of our real life. A believer knows that this life is not about fairness, uninterrupted happiness, or justice, because these belong to the afterlife. So he views this life as a test, a learning academy, a place where he can grow morally, intellectually. This is a test to determine where we stand on issues of belief, how we serve God, what we contribute to the well-being of humanity. This is a test to separate the righteous from the wrongdoers, the truthful from the hypocrites, and so on. So a believer is satisfied with his lot because he believes that what God chooses is best for him in the long run, and that the final outcome is always good for a believer. With such strong coping mechanisms, every transient hardship becomes bearable and inconsequential in the context of eternal life, and in comparison to the rewards that he will receive in this life for his patience and in the next life. Another value of belief is that we have an objective source for morality. We can live in accordance, we have two choices. We can either live in accordance with the objective morality and ethics that are derived from the attributes of our perfect God, who knows us best and who protects our rights and the rights of others, or we can live in the fluid sphere of godlessness, where there is no right or wrong. Just look at these quotes on morality from leading atheists. There is no evil, no good, nothing but blind indifference. Incest may be okay. Rape is a natural outgrowth of human nature. It may be ethical to kill people for certain beliefs. Necrophilia and bestiality may not be wrong. State programs for the underprivileged should be forbidden. Racism and warfare are the application of survival of the fittest. Some atheists say they can be moral without God, but morality without an objective reference is not reliable because it depends on our fickle selves and our subjective moral compasses. What gratifies us today may not satisfy us tomorrow, and what we consider as good behavior may be viewed as immoral by others. Belief also gives us freedom and choice. When we worship God, we're free from worshiping or submitting to anybody else. Because if we don't submit to God, then whether we know it or not, we are submitting or serving something else, like a boss, a loved one, money, celebrity, and so on. What is more honorable, to worship those who take from us or He who gives us everything? To follow and obey those who cannot help themselves or He who has dominion and control over everything? Is it more honorable to take direction from the Creator who knows us best or from people who are as lost as we are? Worshipping God also frees man from submission to his whims and weaknesses. If we follow every desire and submit to every whim, we weaken our resolve. We become slaves to our desires. Religion imposes some limitations, and through the observance of such limitations, we gain strength of character. Just to give you an example, to overcome addiction, addicts are advised to follow a 10 or 12-step program, but this program includes submitting to a higher power to restore control over themselves. Also, worshiping God gives man the freedom to have a say in his afterlife, because the path to everlasting happiness is clear. If he does good, he gets heaven. If he's a non-repentant wrongdoer, he gets hell. So the believer has the choice and is allowed to affect his eternal life, while a non-believer, an atheist, believes he is created by and snapped by unknown forces with no say whatsoever in his afterlife. With atheism, there is no free will. Just look at some quotes from leading atheists. Harris, free will is an illusion. Dawkins, we are robots. Coyne doesn't even consider himself morally responsible because he doesn't have a choice. Consider the harm to society and what this means in terms of morality, crime, punishment, the rights of others, and so on. Belief also gives us rationality and truth. When atheists believe our minds came from random physical processes and that our minds were not built for truth but for survival, it means our minds cannot be counted on to cognitively reach any truthful conclusion. So, under atheism, we should treat any conclusion we reach with a very high degree of skepticism. Now, compare that with the believer who believes that our brains are a blessing from God, who is the source of all truth, wisdom, reason, and rationality. As such, a believer trusts and appreciates his reasoning ability and the conclusions of his mind. Also, religion and belief gives us hope in the afterlife, and man cannot exist without hope. With atheism, the most you can look forward to is death. Afterlife offers the believer the places he cannot hope to reach in this life. It offers him the boundless love that this world cannot offer, the people he yearns to meet, the fulfillment of his wildest dreams. It is the removal of all boundaries and the expansion into every possibility. Can we ever doubt the positive influence of such hope on the life of any human being? Religion supplies hope for a happy ending, and all of humanity loves a happy ending. For those who demand peer-reviewed research, I list a few citations here, and I will list the references in the comment section below the video. So, in summary, atheism is a losing value proposition. It gradually unravels the components of our humanity. It removes God, refuge. It removes purpose, which is our role and mission in life. It removes guidance, our manual. It removes common sense, basic truth, and rationality. It removes the objective source that we have for ethics. And it removes our free will, the responsibility for our actions. And more importantly, it removes the hope in the afterlife. But what does it offer in return? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Atheism promises us that we will go back to nothing, with no rewards or compensation for the loss of our humanity. Many people, even atheists, are questioning the value of such an ideology because we see rising rates of suicide, crime, mental disease, family disintegration. We see the rise in addiction, depression, senseless violence, and so on. So the rejection of divine moral guidance and the denial of our spiritual aspect has come at a very high price. So why don't we try God's way for a change? It can only be an improvement over what we have. I'll end with a quote from William Provine, who is a well-known atheist biologist. He says, "Let me summarize my views on what modern evolutionary biology tells us loud and clear." And these are basically Darwin's views. There are no gods, no purposes, no goal-directed forces of any kind. There is no life after death. When I die, I'm absolutely certain that I'm going to be dead. That's the end of me. There is no ultimate foundation for ethics, no ultimate meaning in life, no free will for humans. What an unintelligible idea. I say, what a bleak prospect. Why would anybody give up a chance to attain heaven for hell on earth?